Chief, what would you like to say?
So I just wanted to there have been some comments and concerns and some questions, and instead of just calling everybody back, I thought we'd just get together and just share a little bit. Last night was a hard night for us in our city. Any loss of life is tragic, and when especially around domestics, always I just have a place for those in my heart because they're just tragic. And sometimes I wish people could just walk away and arguments or whatever. But when you have firearms present in those type things, that they often can turn for the worse. And we've seen that not just here in our city over the years, but in the past with domestic situations when firearms are involved. So just kind of touch base. Last night about 7:20, 24, 7:25, there was a call of gunshots in the 700 block at a residence there on 16th Street. Officers responded. They got there within about a minute and located 3 individuals, all adults who had suffered gunshot wounds. One was pronounced deceased at the scene, and 2 other individuals, both adults, were taken to an area hospital. One later succumbed to his injuries and regrettably also passed. And then another individual who had suffered some gunshot wounds to his lower extremities. He is doing better. He looks like everything's going to work out there. Grace of God, he's going to be okay. And we wanted to give time to let him heal. But I just actually got some earlier update on him about 11:30, 12 o'clock this afternoon. So as we try to piece together, it's a pretty quiet neighborhood. It's right there on 16th Street. I talked to probably 3 or 4 residents in close proximity to the house. Everything happened inside the house, inside the residence there. It was a domestic type shooting. We've got that locked down now, and there was some type. So we'll talk about it in just a second. I just want to talk about the neighborhood for a minute. South Precinct does a really good job. They have done an excellent job with crime reduction in the Southeast community this year. Citizens have really gotten involved, tips, calls, information. Even when we do community events, there's a large turnout. It's just it's people just to kind of take it back to their neighborhood, working together, and I appreciate that. So this is an area I asked, how many calls have we had for service, for any type, even domestic type related calls at this particular location, and there were 5 or 6 calls back in 2022, but none of them were related to domestic. It was other things, parking violations, property. None of them had to do with domestics. There was only 1 call this year in 2024, and it had nothing to do with a domestic type situation. So what happens is we're pieced together. Mr. Williams, who is, and I think you got the press release that went out already on names, but Mr. Williams is at the residence. His girlfriend, there's an argument that takes place. I think we've got a good idea about that, what argument. We're still trying to piece that together, but we've got some good understanding about what that argument was about. Mr. Williams leaves for a short amount of time and then comes back. When he returns, the argument continues. He produces a firearm, and it appears he is the aggressor and fires multiple rounds. Our other individual, Delonte Taylor, who was later taken to the hospital, also returned fire in a self-defense type manner. Regrettably, both of them were struck by gunfire. In the crossfire, Mr. Williams apparently shot the other individual in the legs, the lower extremity area, who was also later transported. And then Mr. Williams was pronounced deceased at the scene, and Mr. Taylor was transported to the hospital, like I said, but regrettably, he succumbed to his injuries. As we canvassed the area, talked to neighbors, what they heard. I got to talk to 3 or 4 families that were there in the neighborhood, and like I said, they said, it's a pretty quiet area. We've talked to them now every now and then. We see them, have conversation. Once a search warrant was obtained, we processed the crime scene. Everything was inside the residence. We did tow a vehicle that we believe belonged to Mr. Williams. We just want to go through that one last time. And inside, I can tell you that there were several rounds, shell casings that were recovered, and 2 firearms. I don't want to go too much into that further on. There's a couple things that still need to take place. You all are well aware that I want a history of the firearm, where did it come from, who purchased it. We'll do that through our federal partners through an E-Trace system. And then I want to also look at the shell casings through our NIBIN system to see if they link up to any other violent crime or any other shootings. But that's sort of where we're at. I just wanted to clear some of those things. It's not that we're not looking for anyone else in this case, and it's just to me it's just tragic when you have a domestic situation. Everyone knows everybody, and just an argument that results. Last night an argument, right, and today it results in 2 loss of life and another individual that's injured. So that's just it's how do you prevent that, right? Is the police department and community. So it was just heartbreaking, and just I saw the detectives talking with family members. We'll have some more conversation, maybe do a follow-up interview, at least with 1 or 2 more individuals, but they've got a pretty good idea of what unfolded there and what the situation, how this will be resolved.
Did Tracy Williams live in the house? I think we were given that was his address.
I believe that all of their information came back to that location, yes, sir.
And so he leaves and comes back. What would they argue about? What was the argument?
Yeah, so they've got a pretty good. I don't want to jump the gun on that. There's 2 more interviews they want to do to shore up what the content of the argument was. But I can tell you it was about some family matters. It wasn't some type of criminal or anything like that. It was some family matters that were going on, some disagreements and judgment things, but there are a couple other people they want to interview. So I just want to hold off on that until they get those final interviews done.
What is the name of the other brother? The one that is living right at the hospital.
He's a victim.
Yeah,
I understand. Next question.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
So Tracy shoots Delonte Taylor, and he also shoots the other brother.
Yes, sir.
Okay, and then gunfire from Delonte kills Tracy Williams.
Strikes Mr. Williams, that's correct.
So the brother who is injured in the hospital really did not fire any.
Correct, that's correct.
He did not have a gun.
That's from what we have at this point, that's correct.
And the 2 guns that you got inside the residence came from Tracy and Delonte.
That is our belief. That's where the evidence is pointing to at this point. The one was in the possession of Mr. Williams, the other was in possession of Delonte, and they were both found at the residence.
So Tracy shoots Delonte, and then Delonte returns fire. Tracy was shot. Where was he shot, Tracy?
On his body.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna again,
Okay.
just only because there's
That's
2 more
fine.
interviews that they want to shore up on.
No worries.
But we everything points to that Mr. Williams was the aggressor.
Tracy shoots Delonte. Delonte shoots Tracy.
Returns fire.
And both are killed.
That's correct.
What are their relations to each other, Williams and Taylor?
The relationship is mom and the sons, and then Mr. Williams is boyfriend. There's no relation to the kids except staying there together. But the relationship is mom and Mr. Williams are boyfriend girlfriend.
And are you saying that in the South Precinct you've only had 5 to 6 calls in 2022?
Yes, I just looked at the calls for service
And none in 2023 or 20? And
None.
one in 2024?
None that showed
And
up.
so when I asked the question, how
Yep.
many times have you been called at this residence? Probably none.
I think there's been 5 or 6 calls over the last, since 2020, during 2022, 23, 24, but none of them, that's as far as we looked back, and none of them had to do with anything with domestic situation.
Oh, do 5 to 6 calls to that address?
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
That's
I'm
correct.
sorry, I
Nope,
misunderstood.
that's correct.
5 to 6 calls to that address.
That's correct.
What were they about?
They were unrelated. I don't want to get into it was some things with damage, some things with, I think there was an issue about a loud noise, parking issue, but nothing had to do with any type of domestic violence type situation.
Now, the son's mother was in the house as well.
Yes.
What can you tell us about that?
So everyone was inside. I know the detectives interviewed mom. They will probably do another follow-up interview with her just to make sure that shore up the story. I saw her last night. I did not get a chance to speak with her personally, but I did see her. It looked like there was some family around. Just a hard situation. When I walked past, she was in the car talking with the detective, and then I saw her with family, and I didn't want to interject. I'll probably try to give her a call, and if she's willing to just talk to me, I just want to, sorry this happened. It just offer some condolences. It's just, when I got to the scene last night, it was roped off. The detectives were there. They were processing, canvassing the area, and it looked like they had a pretty good idea of what had occurred. And as then information came forward in the interviews, and then able to talk to the young man that's still at the hospital. Again, we just talk about individuals getting into an argument, and 2 individuals with firearms, and the next thing you know, shots are fired, and now we have 2 loss of life, that a domestic related type situation, and you know, your heart just goes out to the family of something like that, that just people could have walked away. You know, it just, there's no argument worth that. The detectives did a good job in processing it. Like I said, the citizens that I talked to were very, very cooperative and understanding. I talked to the next door neighbors and just went up and sat down with them and you know, just sharing a little bit of information. The female that lived next door, we were just talking, and she's like, "Chief, you know, I just saw them just the other day and just had a casual conversation." And as she was talking to me, a tear rolled down her face. And I kind of put my hand on her shoulder and I said, "You know, it's okay." And she goes, it's just senseless. It's just senseless." And I can't add anything to that. She's exactly right. And I think we see that way too often here and in other parts of our surrounding area here in the Hampton Roads area of when you inject firearms and disagreements. We've seen other departments and other chiefs talk about the same thing. When you inject firearms into disagreements and you can't, you pull that trigger, you can't take that bullet back. And it's just a tragic event for the family, for that neighborhood and our community. I did have a conversation with Mayor Jones. I called him last night from the scene just to touch base with him and brief him. There was another councilman that showed up at the scene, and we talked. It just want to know a little bit some of the same things that we're talking about right now. And then I called our city manager and shared with him kind of what we had and where we were going.
How many shots were fired by each Tracy and Delonte?
So what they did right now, they did recover the 2 firearms. They're going to look at the shell casings. They'll get that match for me later up when we do the ballistics. And then I also want the report back from the E-Trace on those firearms. So we'll get to that eventually.
Is the brother who's in the hospital, is he cognizant? Is he aware?
So
Did he fill in the gaps?
Yeah, he did. He did help out. That's, you know, when we talk about some other interviews, we want to go back and follow up on some things that we already have. I got a brief this morning and then just an update maybe about an hour and a half ago on how he was doing. It looks like he's progressing very well, which we're very, very thankful for.
Did this have any, was there a motive of domestic assault here or anything? Son defending mom, anything like that?
I think it started out all verbal over some type of disagreement or how one individual felt about something else or some choices by others. And I think it escalated and Mr. Williams leaves, comes back with a firearm, starts firing, and Mr. Taylor returns fire, and regrettably, we have the loss of life of 2 individuals today that just some better decisions or de-escalation methods or coping could have maybe prevented.
And you said the mother was the mother of Mr. Williams, is that right?
No, the mother, the mother is, they're in a relationship with Mr. Williams,
Okay.
boyfriend, girlfriend. Mr. Taylor is the mother's son.
Gotcha, okay.
Following what they live there.
The surviving victim, would you go so far as to say they were just a bystander?
Yeah, so, well, I think there may have been multiple people involved in the argument, but we don't believe that the individual at the hospital, we don't believe that he had a firearm or that he possessed. We believe the shooting was between Mr. Taylor and Mr. Williams.
And was he involved, I'm sorry, was he involved in the argument at all, or just,
So,
these 2 were having beef with each
yeah,
other?
I think it was kind of a family argument about situations in the family and choices. But they're going to do like some more follow-ups. They got a pretty good idea, but they want to do at least 2 more interviews just to shore up what that actually was. And I just think it's important. I appreciate you guys taking the time. I just wanted to kind of shore up. I don't want the community thinking, well, wait, what happened? Did somebody shoot 2 or 3 individuals and they're on the loose? We're not looking for anybody else in this case. The evidence is there. That's being recovered and processed. We're going to do some backstory on where those firearms came from. But everything points to what everyone inside the residence has told us. We just want to kind of share some things up.
And to make sure I'm clear about this, 719 16th Street is the address, and you're saying that in 2022 there were 5 to 6 calls to that address,
Right.
but you won't go into details
Yep.
what they were about.
But they were none of them pointed to be anything related to domestic situations.
Okay, and then in 2024 there may have been 1.
I think there's 1 call in 2024.
Good. Okay.
Okay, are we good?